Well, it's great to be back. For those of you who were with us last year, you may recall we were talking about what Trump had to do in order to win. Now we're going to talk about things he needs to fix, specifically what it is that I believe is the biggest problem in the United States, which is immigration, mass immigration, and illegal immigration. Before I get too deep into it, I want to thank you all for coming here tonight. I want to thank Ed and Faye. How many people in the house are veterans? I want to thank you for your service. We wouldn't be here if it weren't for you. Just to introduce real quick, my son Ryan is on the cameras. My best friend John is going to watch you all, make sure nobody wants to shoot me. And this is my son Dennis, who shares my name, but has his mother's smarts. Last year when we were here, I focused in on two things, immigration and the economy, but with a specific mindset that the immigration topic wasn't being attacked and approached the way it needed to be. And I love the fact that Trump dedicated most of his campaign to leading with immigration. In fact, it saved his life, right? He always talks about how he moved his head to look at that chart and the bullet went by. Well, the good news is we won the election. The bad news is that I don't think anybody in this room has been given the correct assessment of how much work is in front of us. So I don't think anybody in the country has really been given the correct assessment of what is happening with illegal immigration and mass immigration into this country. And although we're all celebrating about Trump's win, and yes, I like many of his picks, my favorite of all is Tom Homan, who is basically going to make sure, yes. But at the same time there's more to the problem than just talking tough. Tough talk is only going to get us so far. So a couple of months ago, I actually was in Miami, and I can't remember the fellow's name. I was invited down there to watch it, and I thought he gave a great presentation. And what he did was he took video that he had shot over in Israel, and he played a clip, and then he talked about that clip. And I said, you know what? I think I'm going to do the same thing when we start our speeches up again. And it was amazing because, Faye, you actually reached out to me to do this again about 2 days after we saw that presentation. And my wife's like, you got to do it. And I said, okay, we'll do it. So I'm going to show you something here. And it's a little depressing in the sense that nothing, you see up there, it says, some things never change. The only thing that's changed from what you're going to see here and today is that I have more gray hair. I filmed this stuff in 2008, 9, and 10. If I didn't tell you that, you'd swear I just filmed this last week. So what we're going to do is we're going to play a couple of clips. I'm going to give you some statistics maybe that you know or you don't know. I'm going to emphasize a little bit more with some more information and talk about what it is that Trump needs to do to really fix this. Because I think, if I could be so egotistical, I think I know this topic better than anybody in the United States of America. I have worked with the Border Patrol down south. I have worked on the northern border. I have dealt with parents who have lost their children. I have dealt with workers who have lost their jobs and their companies. I have been in front of the drug cartels. I have done it all. And 4 movies later, I've made 4 documentaries. And if you want to watch the most recent one, which was I made in 2019, it's on Amazon Prime. You could just look for They Come to America. And everything, my son calls my films, what do you call them?
Prophecy media.
Prophecy media, because everything that I have said would come true has come true, including, I said, if Biden wins, we will have open borders. And that is what we had. So we're going to start off, we're going to cover a couple different things. We're going to cover education, medical, health, crime, you name it. So here you go. I don't know how this is going to sound because this system is almost as old as this. But you just tell us if it sounds good or not, and we'll try to fix it on Ernie's end. I'm going to lead off by saying this gentleman here and the other one you'll see with him are two illegal aliens from El Salvador. And I had found them, and we interviewed them for about 2 months.
Oh, you have a bank account here?
Yeah, and
How did you get a bank account if you don't have papers?
Oh.
Do you have a social security card?
no, I don't have the social security, but I've had a tax number, you know.
You have a tax number.
Yeah, the tax number.
Anybody ever come after you asking you for taxes?
No,
No.
no.
Do you think that you're taking jobs away from Americans?
I think.
Yeah. Do you feel bad about it or no?
Yes, I think that.
You do feel bad. Why do you feel bad?
Because some guys being job for American guys now he can do for little money. So American guys say, okay, pay 1,000 for this job. The Spanish guys say, okay, pay me $600 or $500. I feel bad for.
You feel bad for them?
Yeah,
Why do you feel bad for them?
because he want to work too.
So then why doesn't he do it for $600?
So he has to pay more money for the taxes or.
We are the most givingest country in the world. We give to everybody. We protect everybody. We go broke on this world. And yet, as soon as you speak up and say, I'm hurting, these guys don't deserve to be here, they don't deserve to be taking Americans' jobs, all of a sudden I'm a racist. And that's just not gonna cut it. Where are all these guys going right now? They go over to the Southampton Soup and Tire right there. That lady, she feeds them. She gives them clothes, she gives them food, and there's American taxpaying citizens that are dying out here. Ain't got a pot to pee in.
Wait, they're all going over there right now?
They're all going over there right now, yes.
Like a scheduled time?
Oh yeah, every day she does it.
11:30.
Every day. I don't care how much of a do-gooder she thinks she is. She's breaking the law. She's perpetuating all of this. The McDonald's was doing it too. 7-Eleven, they got an order of protection against me just for protesting out on the sidewalk. I can't even go into 7-Eleven. These guys are breaking the law. It's not right here. Everybody just keeps letting them do it too, and I don't understand how. I don't understand why.
So that the American spirit that got us to the moon, that got us to the West Coast, we lost that years ago. If we had that, I don't think we would have an immigration problem. However, if we took away all the illegal immigrants that ever came over to America, we wouldn't have America. We came here as illegal immigrants. That's how we were founded.
This guy right here doesn't know it from deep center field, this guy. He really doesn't. He's just talking in circles, this guy. He really is.
I've seen some of the Latinos in this neighborhood are the most polite, the most respectful, the hardest working. It's the American guy who wants to go home at 3 o'clock and get drunk and is irresponsible on the job site, where these guys are going to work when an American guy doesn't want to work for that little bit of money.
That's baloney. I had 25 tax-paying American citizens working for me. The builders that used to hire me and my guys come up here to get the cheap labor, and they cut me right out of the picture.
Right.
Now, my tax-paying American citizens aren't paying the bills anymore. Who's paying the bills? These guys? They get their checks and they send it back home. They're building brand new houses at home, and we get stuck with the bill. They're using our services in this
I don't know if
country.
that's really the
They
truth.
use our
I don't
schools.
have proof of that.
You think
so.
these guys, 40 people to a house, they're paying the right taxes? When 10 kids are coming from one house, they're only paying one tax bill. How is that helping our country out?
America's supposed to be the compassionate nation. We take in everybody, but they need to be given a way to say, okay, look, you're really not supposed to be here, but if you're here to help, then you know what, we need help.
You come here illegally, bye-bye. We don't want you. We don't need you.
What do you do?
What do? I do construction.
You do construction?
Yeah.
So, do you hire these guys?
No.
Oh,
Why?
come on. The things that you do to me every day.
I do that
You
because you
tell me
harass
you
these
don't hire
guys.
these guys.
Do not hire them.
That's a load of rubbish.
I don't. I work.
That guy's name is Tom Waddell. He's been standing on the corner of 7-Eleven since 2002. He's been there during snowstorms, during 102-degree weather. He's been shot at, stabbed, had coffee thrown at him, and periodically he gets somebody who honks the horn in encouragement. And the reason being is because that is Southampton, New York, the home to every liberal in the media and to Wall Street. Okay? That man had 25 people working for him. He lost all of them. He lost all of his equipment, lost his wife, lost his kids, lost everything because he says, I'm not going back to go do some other job. I'm a master carpenter and I want to be able to apply my skills. And that's why he's been standing there. He still stands there to this day. Now, here's the problem. Right now, we hear Trump and Tom and everybody else talking about how we're going to deport the bad guys who are the bad illegal aliens who are committing the crimes and everything else. And I get it. We're going to talk about them. Denny's going to give you some statistics on that. But they're not the people, believe it or not, that are causing you the most problem and costing you the most money. It's those two guys that I showed you in the beginning who said, yeah, we know we're taking away the jobs and we know that we're not having to pay the insurance. And meanwhile, every single last person in this country that is okay with giving these people a job are breaking the law. They are breaking the law. Now, you may not know what that law is, but that's why you came here tonight. My son right now is going to tell you about Title 8 U.S. Code 1324A from the Immigration and Nationality Act. Dennis, tell them the bullet points of what this act says.
Yes, so with the Immigration and Nationality Act, it's essentially an umbrella blanket of aiding and abetting, transporting, any plot to encourage or induce an illegal immigrant to come over the United States through the border or even in maritime ways. You are subject from anywhere from 5 to 10 to 20 years in prison, depending on which state you committed the actual illegal act, as well as the intention. So if you're looking to just help someone out, you could be facing a fine of $5,000. But if you're doing it for commercial gain, maybe you're running a business and you're looking to just hire cheap workers in the scenario that Tom faced in terms of an adversarial aspect. And you could be also fined up to hundreds of thousands of dollars. So
And spend 10 years in jail.
and 10 years in prison, yes.
20 years in jail if you harboring and taking care of an illegal alien, and that illegal alien turns around and kills or hurts somebody, you could be in jail for 20 years. When was the last time, just by a raise of hands, anybody remember seeing something on Newsmax or Fox News? You're never going to see it on the other ones. Fox News or Newsmax telling you that an employer was sent to jail for 10 years or 20 years. Never. Ever, ever, ever. Never. We're just going to focus in on the gang members and on the people who kill people like Lake and Riley. But you never hear about all the other different people. In fact, I hate to knock you if you loved a certain guy on Fox News named Sean, but Sean gave me an hour to myself, a special. I was allowed to have guests come on and support, what it is that we were out there doing with my films. Sean would not allow Tom Waddell on the show. Because if you listen to Sean, he will never talk about mandatory E-Verify or cutting off the jobs, ever. In fact, when Mitt Romney lost to Barack Obama, Sean Hannity went on his radio show and said the only way we're ever going to win another election is if we give these people amnesty. Look it up. I don't make it up. I'd play it for you, but I figured we'd do this instead. Okay? A couple other little stats you need to know. Between 2023 and half of 2024, 2 million American jobs were lost, but 3.7 million jobs were gained for the foreign-born. Now, there's another thing you saw up here at the very beginning. I asked the guy, you may have missed it because of the audio, I asked him, how are you working if you don't have a Social Security number? And he says, I have a federal tax ID. Dennis is going to tell you about a federal tax ID program, about the specific program for illegal aliens.
It's called the Individual Taxpayer Identification Number. It was created by the IRS in 1996 under President Bill Clinton.
Yes. And right now in the United States of America, 20% of our workforce is the foreign-born. 20%. That means 1 out of every 5 people you see when you go around here is foreign-born. And then you wonder why our kids aren't working. I have a kid who lives in my neighborhood who has come to my house plenty of times and said, Mr. Lynch, can I wash your boat? Can I do your cars or whatever? And I said, man, what, you can't get a job? And he says, no, I can't get a job. I said, you know, when I was your age, I used to cut lawns. He said, Mr. Lynch, I can't get a job cutting lawns. I don't speak Spanish. Okay, that's coming up next. So there was another thing that was said in here by the guy who hires illegal aliens, who was going back and forth and said that, you know, if we had the same mojo that we used to have when, you know, we were looking for gold in California, that maybe we wouldn't have this problem. This is not a problem of lazy Americans. Do you remember back when you had your first house built or when you bought your first house? Did you have to get your workers from Mexico, Central America, and South America? No, not at all. You had probably a guy who looked a lot like Tom, sounded a lot like Tom. But what happened was they got cut out because Americans want wages that are commensurate with what it is that it costs us to live. We don't want to be paid like peasants. And this is why this problem is here. Everybody says, well, they want the votes. They do want the votes, and eventually they will get them if we don't clean this up. And we're going to talk about this deeper in terms of what Trump has to do. But keep in mind that this is only going to get worse unless one thing happens, and that's the key to tonight. We need mass deportations. Mass deportations. And we'll get into that in a second. But before we go into the next clip, let me just remind you of one thing. You know those Western unions where you send money out? In 2023, 81 billion with a B, $81 billion last year sent out to other countries from foreign workers in this country. 81 billion. Next clip.
So what happens is people see the problems that are caused by illegal immigration and legal immigration right now, and they say, could we adjust to handle this population that's here right now? And the vast majority of Americans say, I think we can. I think we can adjust to that. What they don't think about, though, is that's what you would have if you stopped all illegal immigration right now. That's not where we're staying. We're headed for something else. We're adding another 60 million people over the next 20 years. How are we going to handle that? And that's where we lack political leaders with political vision.
Being a marketing rep in, Dade County, you have to speak Spanish. I was a rep that got sent up to Broward because I don't speak Spanish.
So you have to, and you live here.
Yes.
So you have to commute.
So I commute all the way from South Beach all the way up, almost to Boca every day.
Every day because you don't speak Spanish.
Yes.
How long have you been out of work?
Over 2.5 years.
And you can't get a job because you don't speak Spanish?
That's right.
And this is in the banking industry?
That's correct.
I've tried to work in the hotels. I've gone downtown to real estate offices. I've gone into retail stores, and they want everybody here to be bilingual, and I'm not.
And personally, it sucks big time that I have to worry about speaking another language to vote here or to get a job here. And I have been looking for a job for a long time.
I just have to do what I can to survive.
And that's working for a chiropractor at a show like this?
Anything I can do.
So have you thought about learning Spanish?
No, not really. Why should I have to learn Spanish when I have all the other qualities and experience?
Who do you blame for this?
It must be the politicians.
Think about going to college and learning banking. So this way you could go massage people's back at a conference. I mean, that's what I found when I was out doing these documentaries. And that was in 2010. How bad do you think it is right now? 14 years later, and with 4 years of unbelievable illegal immigration and mass immigration into this country. You know, the guy at the beginning, Roy Beck, he's a numbers expert. In fact, he runs a place called Numbers USA, specifically to this topic. And he talked about how it was that we'd have 60 million people over the next 20 years. Well, that was 14 years ago. I don't think he depended or thought on Joe Biden being the president and adding to that number significantly. So we're like a sardine can, and we're starting to get filled up with people who are not supposed to be here. And that is a massive, massive problem. Now, Dennis is going to give you some statistics about the employment in this country right now, about what employers are up against when it comes to things like being able to speak Spanish.
Yeah, these are actually two recent surveys done this year in 2024. The first comes from the American Council on the Teaching of Foreign Languages. They have found that 1 in 4 U.S. employers lost or were unable to pursue business opportunities due to the fact that their employees lacked foreign language skills. Then a survey by Ipsos Public Affairs shows that 9 out of 10 U.S. employers rely on employees with foreign language skills other than English, with 1/3 of that statistic reporting a high dependency on foreign language skills.
Now, to add insult to injury, I'm going to tell you about cities in the United States of America, okay, in terms of speaking Spanish as the primary language, meaning English is second. Milwaukee, Wisconsin, you couldn't get further away. 15% of the people there speak Spanish as their main language. Denver, 30%. Chicago, 25%. Trenton, New Jersey, 40%. Miami, 66%. East LA, 86%. El Paso, 68%. McAllen, Texas, 74%. And leading the country is
Hialeah, Florida at 94%. And that's not too far from here.
Maybe you've driven around there lately. Yeah. That's where the country's going. This is why President Trump needs to start mass deportations. No questions about it, and I'll tell you how it gets carried out. Okay, to piss you off even more. All right, we'll play the next clip while we see if we can get that turned off.
You speak good English. How did you learn the English?
Last winter I went to the school.
Did they give you that school for free, or did you have to pay?
Nah, free.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
If I was to snap my fingers and you were legal, so pretend like you're legal, okay? Do any of you ever plan to go home and have full-time residence in your home country, or do you think you're here for good?
I have a plan.
You have a plan?
Yes. I watch the young people, and I think they are, what's the easy way to say jerk? Not jerk.
Jerk.
Oh, jerk. Okay. Sorry.
A jerk is a jerk.
I can't find
Yeah. I've been called one a few times.
So I don't want to make children here in this country. So I want to make money in this country and return to my country.
So then truth is that you really do not want to be an American?
No. Honestly.
I love the honesty. Why don't you want to be an American?
Because United States is not the best in the world, you know? The humanity change. Today, you pay for me. Tomorrow, my son pay for your son.
Do you have any way of monitoring whether or not a student is of legal or illegal status?
We do not ask that question.
Where does BOCES get its funding?
BOCES gets our funding from the state level as well as from the federal government. It can cost us in a range of, I would say, $6,000 to $8,000 per student. Now, obviously, that doesn't correlate with the registration fee that we're charging them.
How much is the registration fee?
The registration fee is $45 for the ESL students, and that covers them for the entire school year. On an annual basis, we educate about 1,800 to 2,000 students. But this past year, we've seen a dip in that enrollment.
Why do you think that dip has occurred?
That dip occurred because of the fact that there's increased in competition, because the population is doubling and multiplying by the numbers. So other people are going to attempt to provide the same service.
Why did you decide to come and take an English language class?
Oh, a better job. Better job.
Hold on. One at a time.
I wanted to have a better job.
That was an ESL class for adults. ESL is English as a second language. So that was all legal aliens in a BOCES on Long Island, and the African-American fellow you saw there was the principal. And what he said was, we charge them $45 for an application fee, but the state and the federal government pays for the entire schooling, which is $8,000 per student. So we're collecting $45 and it's $8,000. Then I asked him, how many students are you schooling here? And he said, about 2,000 a year. He says, but that has gone down. Why has it gone down? Because there's so many people, we now have competition. So that means that there's more of these ESL classes. So I want to give you a little bit of math, just so this way you could put it into perspective. Dennis and I did some research, and we're going to give you the lowest possible estimate this is. There are currently in the United States 1,100 universities that are offering this sort of class throughout the United States. BOCES is not a university, so that means it's even more than 1,100. Out of 1,100, if we took 2,000 students and times it by $8,000 per, to train these people to take American jobs away from Americans is costing you $17.6 billion, with a B, as in Biden, $17.6 billion per year. Just to put that into perspective, okay? We'll get back to that number in a moment. Now we're going to go into hospitals, and the one woman you're going to see here is from Miami Hospital. Maybe we just make this a little louder when we play it. We'll see.
You have a wife and a baby girl?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
How old is the baby girl?
3 months.
When the baby needs to see the doctor, do you go to the emergency room?
Yeah.
One of the times that you went to the emergency room, what was wrong with the baby?
Oh, I don't know what happens. They say, I don't know.
They say, I don't know, and you just went home and she got better in a day or so?
Yeah, she's better.
How many times did the baby go to the hospital? One time?
Yeah, 2 times in a month.
What was the other time for?
Oh, just looking how many pounds.
Just a checkup?
Just check.
Do you have to pay for the emergency room?
No, for now, no. She get Medicare.
The baby gets Medicare?
Yeah.
Or your wife?
No, baby. My wife too.
We estimated there were about 100,000 births a year to the illegal immigrant population in this country, and that the majority of those were paid for by the American taxpayer at an average amount of about $10,000 per birth.
Cross my fingers, nothing happened to me. But last year, I got the situation and I got to the emergency room, and the bill, it was huge amount.
We have to understand that the individuals that are not covered by insurance will use the emergency room as their first point of access to healthcare delivery. As far as the cost of immigration or undocumented care at Jackson Health System, it is about 15% of the unfunded care, which sums to about $100 million a year. And I think we're very close to where our public safety nets will break. And if the undocumented are not going to go away, I definitely think that there has to be some responsibility placed on those individuals.
So think about this. I want to remind you, this is happening today, much worse than it was yesterday. This is from 2010. This is 2010. That hospital lost $100 million in 1 year on illegal aliens not paying for their medical services. Now, the other gentleman gave you a statistic that said, based on their research, 100,000 births to illegal aliens at $10,000 per birth. Let me give you what the stats are today. Between 250,000 and 300,000 births in the United States in 2023 to illegal aliens, $30,000 for a vaginal birth, and $50,000 for a C-section. So we've gone from 100,000 at 10,000 to 300,000 at, let's say, average 40,000, all in costing $9 billion. So this way, these people can come over the border, give birth, and put the hospitals on life support themselves. And just to give you what that life support looks like, in 2023, 80 healthcare facilities basically went bankrupt because of that, with 12 major hospital systems going completely bankrupt. In 2022, it was a little bit less. But if you look at over the last 5 years, we had between 20 to 50 major hospitals basically go out of business because of that. Not to mention how many people go to the hospital for the ER, not the emergency room, go to the ER and have to wait in line. They may have something bursting inside, but Mauricio's taken his kid to get a checkup, to see that everything's okay, which is being paid for by you in the federal government. You think we need deportations? Okay. Doesn't make you a bad person, doesn't make you inhumane, doesn't make you cruel.
On the left, you've got a travel agency, okay? What you're going to see is another travel agency. As we look around on both sides, what you're going to see are travel agencies, money remitters, telephone locations, places that transfer money, places that move cargo. These are all companies that are essential to the illegal alien population, but they're also custom made for the people involved in criminal activity, whether it's drug traffickers or even terrorists.
It seems to be like one after the next.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it's normally you go into a neighborhood, you might find two or three travel agencies. Here you'll find dozens. And if you go up and down side streets, it keeps repeating itself. This is the drain through which America's money vanishes out of our economy.
The people who throw fastballs will say, yeah, of course you want a program where they get to stay because that's going to enrich you. I mean, what's your comment to that?
That has nothing to do with anything. I mean, believe me, lawyers can make a heck of a lot more money if they were something other than immigration attorneys. You know, how much money do you think attorneys are going to get from poor people that are trying to stay in the United States?
Okay, I'm glad you just said that,
right.
Okay? You just said poor people, right? I took a ride yesterday with a retired INS agent along Roosevelt Avenue.
Right.
I swear to you, every other building literally is either a travel agency
right.
or a wiring station. Why is there a need for people who don't necessarily have enough money to go traveling 4 or 5 times?
Well,
why are there so many of those stores?
I'm not sure who's going to those travel agencies. Are you keeping a record of who's going to the travel agency?
How could I keep a record of a travel agency when I don't even know who the people in my country are?
What you're looking at is the way this whole system comes together for them. The remitters are the silent partner for the guy who's washing dishes and sending home $20 a week to the drug dealer who's moving megabucks. And when you bring young men here by themselves without their wives, they wind up going to the houses of prostitution, which spring up, which leads to more exploitation and more human suffering. This is not victimless. So are we being ridiculous to simply say, well, the people can come here so they can get a better life? Yeah, $6 an hour, a better life. Could we be more stupid than that?
The cost for administration of justice cost for illegal immigrants amounts to about $9 billion a year.
That was $9 billion back then. Now it's far more than that. The number of crimes by illegal aliens in 2023, just for ICE alone, this is just ICE. Remember, we only have 6,000 ICE, 6,000 members of ICE, 73,800 criminals just in 2023 alone by ICE. A total of 290,000. 290,000 when you take, let me go back. The 73,800 are people who had prior crimes, repeat offenders. My apologies. The total number was 290,000. That is 795 crimes per day just by ICE, meaning the ones that ICE are taking care of, not the ones that are happening locally to you. The numbers are astronomical. 15% of the people in our federal prisons today are foreign-born. Now, you may have heard of this new group. Everybody knows MS-13, but you may have heard of this new group called TDA. Okay, they make, MS-13, they make them look like the Mickey Mouse Club. Then he's going to tell you about TDA and what these people do, and there are tens of thousands of them in the country right now.
I was going to say, Mickey Mouse might even be an understatement. I mean, these guys are pure evil. There's a place called Tocoron Prison in Venezuela, and that is where TDA, Tren de Aragua, formed. Nino Guerra was the leader, and soon after that, they kind of started spreading around South America, and drug trafficking, child trafficking, human trafficking kidnapping, everything you could think of that could just be vile and evil, this group participates in. I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with Aurora, Colorado, where some of those members just took over some apartment buildings, but they're all throughout the U.S. As my father just mentioned, I mean, thousands of them. But what's really scary about TDA, I mean, most cartels are scary, right? But what's scary about TDA is actually their viciousness. And if you really do some of the research, it's kind of the stuff that keeps you up at night. I mean, they do extortion, they do beatings, they're violent, sexual assaults and everything in between. But they'll even go the extent further of, there are cases where they will burn their victims. There was even one where ICE agents had to deal with a pregnant woman that was scalded by TDA members simply because she didn't pay over being transported over the border. They are acid attacks. I mean, these guys are not only just evil and vile, but they are here. And the fact that Biden has just kind of allowed them for 4 years to go on their way without any accountability or being sent to where they actually came from, it's scary. I mean, the fact that they could be walking amongst us definitely frightens me.
So there's no question that we definitely need to deport these people, the crime, the criminals, the gang members, but it can't stop there. And that's the way the Republican Party is talking. As if if we solve the problem by getting rid of all the criminals, everything will be okay. No, it's not going to be okay. It's not going to be okay at all. Mauricio, who you saw before sitting at the tree talking about his little girl, sweet guy. I don't think he would ever do anything bad to anybody. But at the end of the day, he's costing you a lot more money than that TDA member is. Just keep that in mind. Just keep that in mind. We're going to go to education and culture right now, which I think is the biggest problem we face of all these things I just talked about, because we are indeed losing our culture. And I want to give you a little story before I play this. That kid right over there, Ryan, is a phenomenal football player, running back and middle linebacker. He's too small now to be a middle linebacker, but a running back, just incredible. His senior year, let me move back. When we moved out to the edge of Long Island, out as known as the Hamptons, and I didn't live in one of those big homes. I lived in a very modest 3-bedroom, 1-bath home with 6 of us and a dog. So it was in my family for 100 years. His football team ended because we didn't have enough players, because all the effort was given to the soccer team. Because the soccer team, when we first moved to East Hampton, Long Island, where Tom, the out-of-work guy, was, the population there was 17% of the student body was ESL. By the time we left, it was 75%. The homecoming game. Think about your life. Homecoming. The homecoming game, he didn't get to play in because homecoming was a soccer game, not a football game.
They're having kids. They're going into the school system. But who's paying for that?
Students, we're proud of your achievements and accomplishments. But I'm sure you are a little sad because after 59 years, E.W. Bauer Elementary School is closing.
You're very emotional right now.
I went to the school.
You went to the school?
My brothers and sisters went to the school. Yeah. It was fine until I got here. Everyone was crying when I got here, so of course, now I'm crying.
Do you think the closing of the school could have been prevented?
Yes.
And if so, how?
Yeah.
We have just completed a study in the past few months of the estimated fiscal impact of illegal immigration at the national and the state and local levels that came to an aggregate amount of $113 billion a year. A majority of that expense, in the neighborhood of about 3/4, is the educational expenditures to illegal alien students, as well as the limited English proficiency education for the children that don't speak English going into the public school system.
When you hear it costs $16,000 to educate children of illegal immigrants who are not paying into the system, does that, you feel like that's a factor in the closing?
Definitely. There's houses all over the place of people who rent their houses out. People who live here and rent don't pay taxes.
The law says doesn't even matter
if you sneaked into this country. It doesn't even matter if you have an illegal visa. We have to educate you. So unless the law changes, I don't have a better solution for that.
Have you seen the number of children in that situation increase, or are you starting to see that decrease?
I would say it's increasing. I mean, we very recently were told we're not allowed to even ask when we register for a Social Security number.
When you were in the second grade, third grade, fourth grade, how many kids were in your class that were non-speaking English? Were there any?
None.
In the other schools that the children will be going to, approximately 1 in 5 students are ESL students. Do you feel like that has an effect on your child's education?
Yes. Unfortunately, they get a little more attention than mainstream children. Tutoring. When my children need help, they say go pay for a tutor. I don't think that's the case for learning another language.
When I was teaching in the public schools, I had 25 children in my classroom. One child spoke only Spanish. I had no help with that child to help her learn English. The other children taught her English because I simply had no time and I had no experience in teaching English as a second language.
Now, isn't that a distraction, though, to the children who have to do that, or do you think that's a positive?
If funding continues to be diminished for public schools, teachers are laid off, class sizes increase as they have, with hard-to-teach students, it's going to be detrimental unless that teacher is a miracle worker.
First of all, schools are having problems irrespective of illegal immigrants. See, that's part of the problem. We should be educating our people. We should be educating them whether they're illegal or legal, because ultimately we're not going to be able to deport them all. And they're going to have an effect on our society.
But Bill, we are educating them all. If that number continues, which you said that the trend is showing that it's continuing to go higher, we have more now than we did then. And I say we as Lindenhurst, Long Island, and America. I'm asking you as an educated guy, is it safe to say we could be looking at more schools closing because their parents are not legal, they are not paying into the system?
Well, there's no doubt. There's no doubt.
In that clip, the gentleman from FAIR said that it was their analysis was $113 billion was the cost of illegal immigration in the country. Today, that same group has now lifted that to $150 billion. 2/3 of it is paying for these kids to go to our schools. Now, a couple of the things you need to know. ESL, remember I told you about the $17 billion we were paying for the adults? Well, now all the kids, they're all getting the ESL in classes. They're all getting it in school. So instead of putting into arts programs and sports programs and into our children, we're putting it into children who aren't supposed to be here. Now, with that in mind, just so this way you know, in 2021, we had 5.5 million children learning ESL. 5.5 million. And the media keeps on trying to tell you that there are 11 million people in the country illegally. That is what we call in New York bullshit. It ain't 5.5. My analysis, and I've been doing this a long time, is we probably have anywhere between 30 to 40 million people in this country illegally. Hands down, without a question. When you look at the border of who's coming across, there's one kid for about every 5, 6, or 7 workers. So if there was 5.5 million in ESL, you do the math of how many people are in this country illegally right now. Now, with that being said, remember I asked the guy at the radio how many kids did you have in your class that didn't speak English when you were a kid? 0? 1? 1 out of every 4 right now in the United States cannot speak English. 1 out of every 4 kids between 1 out of every 5. 1 out of every 5 kids between K and 12 do not speak English. How are we going to get our children to be able to be educated to compete against the rest of the world if this continues? Because let me tell you what else you need to know. Since 2012, our test scores in this country, and I'm not a big, huge testing guy, but if you have something that you have to measure by, our testing scores are going through the basement. We are horrible. Our kids are learning nothing. We just did this. A new study shows in 2022, 1 out of 3 children cannot read. 1 out of 3 children in the United States cannot read correctly. 2022 was the highest decline in math ever recorded. So what's happening is that we're focusing all of our energy on these children who don't speak English instead of focusing in on children that you and I gave birth to and that our children will give birth to. This is becoming the United States of Central America, and we got to have it stop. And if it was the United States of Ireland and every single one of the people coming over the border was Irish or Italian and looked like me or looked like him or looked like half of you, I'd still say you got to go back. In fact, to make the left feel happy, if we took all the illegal aliens in the country, let's deport the Irish first. I'm totally okay with it. If you're here illegally, I don't care what your skin color is. You're not supposed to be in our country. And that's it. Bottom line, case closed. One other little statistic we need to show you. Public education, 2021, cost $15,000 per pupil to teach. But if it's an illegal alien student, it's $25,000. $25,000 to teach a child who is ESL. 2 more clips and we're done.
What do you think is the number one cost to America because of the lack of policy we have for illegal immigration?
Human lives, because lives are irreplaceable.
But my hopes and dreams for a wonderful future for my daughter was cut short, all because Vanessa did what she was taught. She tried to see good in an underdog. This picture was probably when she was about a year old. I love that picture of her. This was the last picture. This was taken on February 14th. She went to a Valentine's Day party with her boyfriend. But I think every picture is my favorite, I guess, because I won't get any more, you know? And when my daughter left her workplace to go pick up her son from daycare, which is 10 minutes away, he asked her for a ride to his car, and the kind of girl my daughter is, you know, she agreed to give him a ride, and he pulled a knife on her. He took her behind a big department store and raped her. And then he put a bag over her head, figuring he would suffocate her, and he put her in the trunk of the car. On Fridays, everybody at work gets together and they go for drinks. And he sat there with my ex-husband. Faustino sat there having drinks with him. So apparently he went back to wherever the car was, and when he opened the trunk, Vanessa jumped out. She was still alive. He pulled the knife again, and he slit her throat over 20 times and almost decapitated her. I'm angry at the government for not protecting my daughter and me. I'm angry at the state. I'm angry at the county. I'm angry at her boss for hiring people like this. No background checks, nothing.
The hardest thing in my career since I've made all my documentaries, in fact, I started doing a documentary about the Parkland shooting. I was dealing with Andy Pollock, as one of the fathers there, and we helped him. I'm sorry. So over my entire career, and it spanned since 2008 is when I started making films. I've done 4 immigration films. We did a film on homelessness, which was like the #1 documentary on Amazon for quite some time. And we were going to do one on Parkland. And I was working with Andy Pollock. He's a father who lost his daughter in Parkland. And we have what would be probably the greatest school shooting film you've ever seen in your life in terms of what we captured and the interviews we did. We couldn't put out the movie, just simply because we couldn't get through editing it. It was just so difficult. The most difficult thing that I've done over the course of time is have to deal with the parents, and I've interviewed so many of them. Dennis has been with me a lot of times in the room. When you have a parent that says that I lost my child, it's hard enough. I mean, I did it with Andy Pollock. But when you say, I lost my child because of somebody that was here in the country illegally working, so this way some business owner could make himself more money and buy a Mercedes instead of a Chevy, it really stings. And I know that a lot of times, you know, it's sensationalized when you put something like, that's why I saved her for the end. And the deaths are horrible. But so too is what happened to Tom Waddell, who's lost his entire life, theoretically, From a business perspective, he lost his wife, he lost everything, as I told you, because the government would not close the borders, would not deport people. So here is what I'd like you to do, please. If you remember, back in February when I was here with you, we said, hey, what do we got to do? Ed got up here and we said, what do we got to do? And we talked about what we have to do in order to win the next election, and you did your part, as Ed had said in his intro. Now you have to do your part. You have to educate people on what it is I showed you here today, and you got to explain to them that it's more than just the gangs. It's more than just the criminals who are stealing cars. It's the people who are stealing jobs. It's the people who are taking over your hospitals, the people who are taking away the education from your children. Now, I have a big heart, very big heart. In fact, I think I donated more money this year than I made. I'm not kidding. But at the end of the day, this is about the rule of law and about the longevity of this country. If we continue to allow this to happen, even if he closes the borders, he can close the border today, but that's like putting a Band-Aid on cancer, because we got to do something with the 30, 40 million people here. We're hemorrhaging. And although I love Trump and I voted for him 3 times, and I think he won all 3 times, he's got to take this very seriously. Now, the way I would do deportations if I were the President of the United States, very, very simple. And I'm hoping that Tom will do this. I would take those cameras and I would take them to a local place where I knew that there were illegal aliens. And I would live stream a raid. And I would let all the people in the United States and all the people around the world understand that the party is over. The people would be gathered up humanely. We're not going to go in like they did to the J6 people with, guns pointed out like this. We don't need to do that. Guns could be on the side, badges like this. It's time to come in. I need to see all your identification. If you're not here legally, you're going home. And if you are the person who hired these people, you're going to jail. I go back to that law that Dennis read you. Each one of these people is breaking the law and they can be in jail for 5 years. You live stream on YouTube, Rumble, X, Facebook, everywhere, watching that business owner go in cuffs, crying, and you watch all those other people be taken and deported. This problem stops like that. It stops like that. And trust me when I tell you, the people around the world, when they see the party's over, the last thing they're going to want to do is give $5,000 and $10,000 to a cartel member to only be deported the next day. A little statistic to end this, and we'll take 2 questions. Dennis will go down 2 questions. I've got a 2.5-hour ride home. President Trump, before he was President Trump in 2015, 2016, he was very hawkish about immigration, just like he is today, maybe only a little bit more. And he said he was going to have mass deportation squads and all this different jazz. The numbers at the border dropped significantly in April after he had taken the office in January. Now, the reason why that is because if you're going to make the trek from South Central America or even through Mexico, it's usually anywhere between 1 to 3 months. So Trump talked tough the whole time, and then he's actually in office, and people said, we're not going. And by the time April came around, we were down to 15,000 apprehensions. 15,000. In April, we had 231,000. That's the difference. So his tough talk, and everything I've said was going to happen is happening now. About 2 or 3 months ago on my podcast, I said, get ready, we're going to have another 2 or 3 caravans because everybody's going to try to get in here before the door closes. And then what's going to happen is legal immigration is going to plummet. And then Trump's going to get on television, and he's going to get on Fox and Newsmax and everywhere else, and he's going to tout that, and you're going to go, yes. Do not forget about the 40 million people that are in your country today. If you do, I promise you, like my son said, I make prophecy films, and I'm making a prophecy here. Trump is going to last for 4 years. When he's done, we don't know what happens. We can't risk having 40 million potential voters for Gavin Newsom. We can't put, hey, I'm only telling you that you got a spot on your shoulder, you need to go to the doctor. That's what's going to happen. So we've got to get rid of them. We won this election because it's Trump. If it was anybody else, we wouldn't have won. Had he not almost been assassinated twice, I don't think we win. I think they would have cheated. It wasn't too big to rig as far as I'm concerned. Every Democrat thinks every single moment on how it is they're going to take Trump out. Trust me on that. It was just people from the left started saying, man, this guy dodged a bullet like that? And he started coming over. Joe Rogan podcasts and all these other different podcasts. Trump is a once-in-a-lifetime human being. J.D. Vance is not Donald J. Trump. DeSantis is not Donald J. Trump. So we've got to prepare now. You've got to be going online and saying, we need to deport, we need to deport, we need to deport. Because let me tell you, I saved the clip here. I won't play it because we're going too long. But I had an illegal alien sitting up here crying. You're going to hear crying. They're going to cry like nothing you've ever seen before. You can't deport me. I've been here my whole life. Blah, 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 blah. You saw the guy. You saw the guy who said, yeah, I'm going home. I'm going home one day. I don't want to be here. I'm here because you're an ATM machine. That's the lion's share of people who are here right now. You cannot let your heartstrings pull. And if they are, I ask you this. Look at the illegal alien on MSNBC or CNN who's crying, and then remember that mother who had her daughter chopped into pieces, raped, and then burned in a field. And see who it is you feel more sorry for. Go up with the microphone. We'll take two. We'll take one from this side and one from that side. And then I have to say adios, amigos. Anybody have a question? Danny over here. Man in the corner.
What happens to the children that are born here while these immigrants are here? Do they remain here or they go back?
It would be their option. But if you heard Tom Horman on I think it was ABC or NBC, he was asked point blank, how are we going to separate the families? How are you going to do deportation if you separate the families? He said, there's a way of doing it. Don't separate the family. They have the option to go home.
The children should be illegal. They're not anchor babies. I don't understand how they can go ahead and do that.
I missed your question.
I was just saying, these are anchor babies. Okay? So if they stay here, the parents have to stay here and take care of them? They should be forced to go back.
Look, here's the example I use for this every time I get somebody who gives me a hard time about this. Not that you're giving me a hard time, but here's what I tell everybody. Right now, if you look in the prisons, the majority of people in prison are African Americans. When let's just call Bill, a black Bill, and Bill gets arrested, and he's going to jail, and he's got 3 kids at home. Do we not send Bill to jail because he's got 3 kids at home? No, we send Bill to jail, and they're going to figure it out. That whole story of, oh, you can't separate the kids. Wait a second, you're separating the kids in America. You're separating American kids from their parents because they made a crime. These parents they came knowingly, illegally, they created a crime. They're creating a crime every single day. They don't pay taxes. They're not doing what they're supposed to do. And I'm supposed to feel bad for their child? I can't. I mean, ultimately, of course, you look at every kid and you say, it's not your fault. But at the end of the day, we sent Bill to jail for his crime. We have to send everybody home.
That's right.
Send them home. Now,
Thank you.
let me take a step further on my deportation plan before we take the last question. Here's how I would do it other than the live stream. I would like to see President Trump get on the television on January 21 and say, I am giving you all right now, illegal aliens, I'm giving you notice. You have 3 months to get your affairs in order. Leave. Go on your own. We're not going to give you a hard time. We're not going to take your money. You didn't pay taxes on that money, but we allowed you to make it. You worked hard for it. Take it, go home, start a business, do something. You've got 3 months. On your way out, if you really do love America, sign the book. We'll fingerprint you, do the whole thing. And you will go on the list, and we'll put you on a good person list because you did the right thing. You want to come back to America? It is going to be a brownie point for you that you did the right thing. If you don't go home after 3 months, we're basically going to turn you upside down and get all that money out, and you and all your family are going back, and you're never coming back. I mean, you're going back home, and you're never coming back. That's it. You give them a chance. Give them a chance. Give them a fair, be humane, give them a chance, because ultimately, we left the keys in the car, and they drove it away, right? So we're to blame for allowing this to happen, but now it's over. You've got to go home, do the right thing, and we'll let you come back like everybody else. Last question. On the other side, Denny, another corner.
What about places like Venezuela who are saying we don't want to take these people back and we're not taking them back? So even if people want to leave willingly, they're not being taken back.
I'll repeat this
Would we
question.
need the military? I mean, I don't understand.
Oh, I could solve that problem too. So the question was, what do we do about countries that don't take back their illegal aliens? I can answer that question for you very easily. The United States of America still is what the entire world ticks around. The US dollar is still the dollar. We give out more money to all these countries in foreign aid. We give them protection. The list is long. It is very simple. If you don't take back your citizens, and oh, by the way, if you vote against us in the UN, all of your money that we have been giving you is done. You ain't getting another dime. So if this guy here, let's call him Jose, let's call him Bill, I don't care who you call him, is he worth $300 million? Because that's what we give you, and you ain't getting it anymore. And if it's a country that doesn't get aid from us, well, we're going to turn around and call the countries that do business with them, and we're going to say, guess what? We're turning you off if you do business with them. We are going to squeeze their neck like we do to Iran. That's the way it's going to be. They're all going home. All right, so I appreciate that now that you all think I'm a racist. It's not the case at all. I appreciate your time. Thank you so much.
Get the Dennis Michael Lynch podcast every day by subscribing on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, and download the DML News app from the Google Play Store or the Apple App Store for breaking news, merchandise, films, exclusive content, and Team DML.